This happened back in 2010 when I was 15 years old. I was on a camping trip with my class in school. My best friend Charlotte and I were disliked by all our classmates, so we kept to ourselves for the most part, both in school and during this trip. We had one friend that we hung out with a lot, but other than her, no one wanted to be near us. I had my camera with me, as I always had back then. My camera, along with my diary, was basically an extra limb for me back then. It was a very nice, hot summer day, and Charlotte photographed me as I sat on a big rock by the water writing in my diary. We were silly as we always were, laughing and making funny poses, etc. From out of nowhere, we heard a voice from behind us. Some guy was standing there. We had no idea for how long he had been there. He started talking to us, and we had a hard time understanding most of what he was saying. He had a very dark voice and didn't speak our language very well. He said he was from Bulgaria and was camping nearby in his trailer. We exchanged looks like, what does he want from us? Here's a snippet from my diary from back then. All right. Charlotte and I were by the water. I sat on top of a big rock and she photographed me. Then some older dude came that could barely speak. He asked how old we were and what our names were, etc. Then he took a seat next to me and asked if I had a boyfriend and stuff. Then he started asking Charlotte to photograph me and him together. We thought he was kind of creepy, but young and naive as we were, we didn't think much of it. Had it been today, I probably would have just said no and asked him to leave us alone. He sat there next to me, smiling at the camera. I remember how extremely uncomfortable I felt, which is very visible in that photo that I still have to this day. It was very weird, though. He asked for a picture, but as soon as Charlotte snapped that photo, he exclaimed, "No, no pictures, no pictures." Charlotte and I looked at each other again, both equally confused. Why did he ask her to take a photo of us if he didn't want his picture taken? The whole situation was strange and started to creep us out. I don't remember much else about our conversation, but I know Charlotte and I ran off to our teachers eventually and told them about the guy. They told us to stay away from him because something about him seemed off. We agreed and went on with our day. We hung out with our friend a lot and kept taking photos and having fun. Later we needed to use the bathroom, which was in a building near the trailer park. As two of us waited outside while the third was in the bathroom, that Bulgarian guy showed up. That uncomfortable feeling appeared as soon as I saw him. He had some friends there with him this time. He walked up to me and asked me if I wanted to come see his trailer. This time I knew nothing good would happen if I went with him. He kept saying his trailer was so nice and he wanted to show it to me. He even tried to bribe me by saying I could get some beer if I went with him. "I'm only 15 and I don't drink," I told him. He gave up after a while and walked back to his friends. A few hours went by before we needed to go to the bathroom again. This time he was outside the building already when we arrived, as if he had been standing there all along, just waiting for us to show up again. My heart sank, and I got this lump in my stomach. Once again, he came up to me and kept asking me to come with him to the trailer. He kept talking about the beer and how lovely his trailer was. I kept saying no, and he seemed to grow agitated. My friends and I decided to go into the bathroom together this time, and when we were done, we basically ran past him back to our camping spot. We went directly to our teacher and told her all about how he was acting, especially towards me. She was furious. She told us to stick together at all times and never go to the bathroom by ourselves. We hadn't planned on leaving each other alone anyway, especially not after this. Later that day, when we had been playing around and listening to some music on our phones, we were walking back to the camp. As we walked past the tents, we saw our teacher further away talking to that dude. We could tell she was really giving him a mouthful. At one point, she pointed at the soles of her shoes and then at him, and we were like, "What is she saying to him?" We started laughing, but were nervous at the same time since we didn't know how he would react to this afterwards. We saw him walk away and looked at us, giving us the finger as if we had done something wrong. We ran up to our teacher and asked her what she had said to him. She was all riled up and told us, "I just told him to leave my girls alone and that he could go somewhere else to get water in that bucket he was carrying as an excuse to walk through our campsite." We cheered for her, and then asked why she had been pointing at her boots earlier. Apparently, she had threatened him with her steel caps, saying they would leave a print on his ass if he came near her girls again. She was a great teacher indeed. After this, whenever we ran into him, he just gave us the finger. Another snippet from my diary. When Charlotte, Elin, and I went to the church and took pictures, we met the man in blue on our way back. We got really scared. But all he said was, "Hey, excuse me," and gave us the finger. I just said, "Thanks, you too," and we kept walking. We called him the man in blue because of the blue t-shirt he was wearing. When we were going to sleep that night, one of our teachers got their car and parked it close to our tent, and they would take turns keeping watch during the night. We didn't see him again, and we all had to call our parents and go home around 4 a.m. because of the weather. It was absolutely pouring all night. Our entire tent was drenched inside out. A few days later, I actually saw that guy downtown and my heart skipped a beat. Luckily, he didn't notice me, and I have never seen him since. It's very creepy to think about what would have happened if I agreed to visit his trailer. I didn't quite understand it all back then. It didn't really sink in that he was an adult and I was only 15. It didn't occur to me how freaky and disgusting this guy really was until I thought back to that moment, all these years later.